Hello, everybody. It's Jonathan Mudd coming to you from the Well House with episode number 5 of Down the Rabbit Hole, where I'm digging into the songs from my new album, Meant for the Sun. Today, we're going to go deep on one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's called Hole in Your Heart.
I lie and wait for every promise spoken. You break your word is always broken. You told me that the love we made would go on and on. But now when I look for you, you're so far away. I thought that I knew you, thought I could get through to you, but I'm all out of words to prove.
Meant for the Sun is my 5th solo album. And I guess if you include the stuff I put out with my early bands, The Shake and JoJo X Mariner, it's my 7th release overall. I'd say compared to those records, Meant for the Sun came together pretty easily. But that doesn't mean I didn't experience some writer's block along the way. I did. I remember it was during one of those stretches I happened to be talking to my old friend Joe Vanderford on the telephone. Joe's a dear old friend from North Carolina, a music critic, and one of the most literate music fans you'll ever run into. Joe and I got to talking about Nick Drake, the great late 60s, early 70s English folk singer. Joe mentioned that he'd recently read an article about how Nick Drake used to use a lot of open and alternative tunings in his songs. The conversation with Joe was really well timed, and I sought out that article he was talking about. And not only did I learn about Nick Drake's tunings, but I also picked up some tips about the tunings that were used by people like Joni Mitchell and Keith Richards and Curtis Mayfield and Jimmy Page. I retuned a couple of my guitars and just started messing around, and before I knew it, I had busted right through that writer's block. Turns out that during that period, I wrote a couple songs in open tunings that ended up on the Meant for the Sun album. One of them is Hole in Your Heart. I used one of Jimmy Page's tunings for this. It's the tuning he used on the Rain song from Led Zeppelin's Houses of the Holy album. I'll play you just a little bit of it. I'm sure you'll recognize it right away. It's kind of a weird tuning. It's just G, C, and D repeated across the fretboard. Of Page's tuning is that it allowed me to play some very simple chord forms, stuff that would sound really dumb and familiar on a traditionally tuned guitar, and come up with something that sounded kind of surprising. I'll show you what I mean. The chorus of Hole in Your Heart is based around really simple power chord forms, but with the open strings ringing out. And as a result, I got all sorts of melodic possibilities that I wouldn't have expected.
I swear I've been true to you, and I don't want to lose you. There's a hole in your heart tonight I'm falling through.
All those open, moody chords suggested kind of a melancholy melody for this song. And it sounded so forlorn by itself that I decided not to add any harmonies or background vocals. It just sounded more right that way. It's a sad song, no way around it. And letting the vocal melody stand on its own just made it all the more sad. Speaking of forlorn, check out the keyboard parts that my friend John Spurney played on Hole in Your Heart. First, the piano part he plays on the secondary chorus or the bridge. Just simple, plaintive, single notes. And how about the swelling keyboard strings that John plays on the second verse? This sound kind of harkens back to the Rain song by Led Zeppelin, in fact. The sound John got is almost like a mellotron. It's really cool.
Hello, mates. Don't mean to disrupt the proceedings, but I'm just sitting here playing Ouija in my English castle and listening to the amazing new record by Jonathan Mudd. It's called Meant for the Sun, and you really got to check it out right now on Spotify, Apple Music, or Amazon, wherever you drop the needle online. It's really great stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's not Led Zeppelin, but it's way better than The Firm.
Now, Hole in Your Heart sounds nothing like Journey, and you don't have to tell me that I can't sing like Steve Perry. But when we were working on this song, John Spurney and I were talking about Journey, and in particular, the really cool understated keyboard lines that Jonathan Cain would play on some of those great Journey hits. I think I had that conversation in mind when we went to build out the last choruses of Hole in Your Heart. Neal, the guitar player for Journey, used to sometimes preface Steve Perry's vocal melodies and sometimes echo them, and sometimes he'd do both in the same song. I kind of took a page out of Neal Schon's songbook on this. Let's go inside the isolation chamber and listen to the intertwining vocal and guitar lines that bring Hole in Your Heart to a close.
I thought that I knew you, thought I could get through to you, but I'm all out of words to prove my love to you. I give everything to you, whatever you ask me to. We've still got time to see this whole thing through.
Well, there you have it, Hole in Your Heart. Thanks for watching this episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. If you enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button below. Feel free to leave a comment. I'll be back before you know it with another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. And we'll go deep on another song from my new album, Meant for the Sun.
I think we're running.